we're really breaking through and we're opening doors for the next generation.
If you see someone who looks like you doing things out of the ordinary, it would encourage you that you can do the same thing or better.
Someone at some point might feel inspired just by the existence of these stories.
You can't always do what you're told.
Now we get to be in places of authority. Now I get to be a captain. Let's fly.
One of the greatest players in history was cheated out of his career.
I noticed Mahmoud was not standing for the national anthem.
Am I saying that everything in America is bad? No. But wherever the bad is, as a Muslim, we don't stand for it.
Mahmoud never said, I'm gonna burn the house down, but the Klan burned his house down.
His willingness to take a stand, he should be celebrated for that.
He has lost plenty of sleep, being nervous and anxious.
I literally just woke up. I'm not losing no sleep.
This Saturday, it's a world title fight. Rey Vargas against Oshaki Foster. We begin the night with two unbeaten heavyweights.
I've come here to give my all, to give the fans a show, and to give the fans a knockout that they want.
San Antonio's very own Mario Barrios taking on Giovanni Santiago.
It's always my favorite fighting here back home. My last fight here was in 2020.
I can not only win, but win convincingly.
I'm still an elite fighter. I can be in there with the best in the division.
At 130 pounds, it's the main event.
I want to be among the best that there ever were in Mexican boxing.
I've always felt like I was one of the best and most talented fighters. I just had to put in the work, and that's what we did.
I'm always going to be there to own him at 126, 130, or 135. I can guarantee you that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our official weigh-in here in the beautiful city of San Antonio, Texas. 234 pounds, 242 and 3/4 pounds, 145 and 3/4 pounds, 146 and 3/4 pounds, 129.5 pounds for Oshaki Foster, 129.5 pounds for Rey Vargas. It's the main event live on Showtime.
Welcome, everyone, on this 11th of February 2023 for another edition of Showtime Championship Boxing Prelims. This time it will be the Rey Vargas versus Oshaki Foster Prelims. Hi, everyone. This will be the countdown for that event. My name is Luke Thomas. I'll be the host for tonight's festivities. My typical partner, Brian Campbell, is not here with us today, although he will be there in San Antonio doing some of the post-fight interviews. We have a grand card for you guys today. Starts at 9 p.m. in the East. It's a triple header out of the Alamo Dome. Showtime Championship Boxing returns to San Antonio with, as I mentioned, a great showcase, a super featherweight title fight for the WBC crown between Rey Vargas taking on Oshaki. It looks like it's spelled Oshaki, but it's pronounced Oshaki Foster. This is a fantastic contest. Rey Vargas moving up to his second weight class in as many fights and is trying this time to become the next Mexican champion to be a 3-weight class champion. Obviously, we knew at 122 and 126 pounds, he got the job done. In fact, he is the reigning 126-pound champion. And in fact, if he wins tonight's contest, he has to make a choice about which weight class he's really going to maintain the rest of his current trajectory, his professional career in. So it could get real interesting about how that all goes. But in any case, he wants to win at 130 pounds here tonight against Oshaki Foster. Foster, a guy, this is after about a 10-year career, his first world title fight, 29 years old, out of the Houston, Texas area. So it's a bit of an all-Texas affair in the sense that you're going to have many Mexican-American fans there to see Vargas. But of course, not the San Antonio guy, but the Texas guy there in Foster. Here's a guy who on the SHOWbox series lost twice, although he was able to fight 4 times with him and came back 2 different times and had great wins as well, but stumbled twice. And his career was in a bit of a tumultuous place, but he's gotten right. He's on a 9-fight win streak as he headed to this contest. His last one coming off of Ring City, USA, his best win to date. Bit of a slickster in the sense of Foster. Actually could be a bit of a slickster himself, more of a typical kind of boxer, using length, using height, using reach in the way that Vargas does. Although in this particular case, while he will maintain I believe even a 4.5-inch height advantage. He has no reach advantage in this contest. So it kind of tells you for 122, Vargas was very tall. For 126, still also tall. Even for 130, he's still pretty tall. So we'll talk more about that fight as we get going. Obviously, a co-main event will be on this card as well. That is very much worth your time. San Antonio's own Mario Barrios is back after a 2-fight skid. First one against Tank Davis, which of course was on Showtime pay-per-view, and then more recently against Keith Thurman, looking to get back into the winning side of things here at 147 pounds. Obviously, he fought Tank Davis at 140, taking on Giovanni Santiago out of Puerto Rico. So in the co-main event, you have the return of the native son. In the case of Barrios, also in this case, a bit of a Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry. That should be a lot of fun. We also, of course, are going to open that card with Lanier Perot taking on Victor Faust. Now, here to start things off on the prelim card is a 4-round super welterweight contest between a pair of guys making their pro debut. You have he actually goes by Dave Whitmire, taking on Keith Foreman out of Texas. Whitmire, a bit of a blue chip prospect from the amateurs. Here's the real stat about him tonight, folks. Ready for this? 17 years of age. Has to get special commission approval. Part of the reason why he has turned pro at 17 was not just the great run he was able to go in on the amateur side, but on top of that, he just couldn't get opponents. He was telling local media, I live in Washington, D.C., he was telling many of them here, he was just having a really, really hard time getting someone to sign on the dotted line in an amateur kind of respect, and obviously he had gone through most of the major tournaments. At that point, there was really no point in him staying if he could get commission approval to go up to the pros, which is what he has done here. So he'll be making his pro debut, 4 rounds, super welterweight contest. I think everyone, given that in both sides of the equation, they have this will be their pro debut, we should have some managed expectations about everything. But this should be a fun contest. 4 fights for you tonight on the prelim card. This will be the first. We have another 4-round heavyweight contest after this. In fact, with Lanier Perot's brother, he'll be on this card. We have an 8-round middleweight contest and an 8-round to sort of headline the prelim cards, a lightweight bout between Claudio Marrero and Gonzalo, Fuenzalida. Used to be out of Chile, now out of Las Vegas. All right. So as I mentioned, here we go. We have a 3-fight main card on Showtime starting at 9 p.m. in the East, and a 4-fight prelim card we have for you guys to kick things off here on Showtime Championship Boxing Countdown. In the case of Whitmire, you see Foster here, you see Foreman on the screen. I apologize. You see Foreman here on the screen getting introduced. This will be, of course, his pro debut as well. Looking to be in excellent condition. Whitmire making waves out of the DMV area. That, of course, is Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia for his prodigious run through the amateurs. And now here he finds himself in this interesting spot as a 17-year-old. Not many times you see 17-year-olds get cleared to fight in any role in combat sports. But he's trying to do his best here to get into the win column to kick off the run of his professional career here as well. Getting final instructions here from the referee before they begin. This should be a fun one. 4 rounds for you in the opening contest here for the Vargas versus Foster prelims on Showtime Championship Boxing Countdown. All right, here we are. And the referee has called them to the center. Wow, right away, Foreman sticking the jab in the face. Both fighters trading jabs now. If you're watching, of course, and it hasn't been identified to you, in the blue gloves with the red trunks is Whitmire, and then Foreman in the white gloves with the black and gold trunks. Good jabs early from Whitmire. And by the way, sort of should be noted, Foreman came racing across the center, and it's now Whitmire holding center of ring, forcing Foreman to circle on the outside. I was gonna say so far both guys are feeling each other out, but then they throw giant hooks that both miss. You can imagine there might be some nerves with a pro debut. Looks like they're trying to get through all of that. So far, Whitmire slowly kind of walking Foreman down. He's getting close at times. Foreman, though, you can tell that Whitmire is inside in ways that are accommodating him. Huge left hook, and that makes Foreman take a knee. I was just going to say it was actually Whitmire doing the better work on the inside, even if Foreman was inviting him. And as he escapes, or at least tries to rotate out, it's a huge left hook from the Washington, D.C. native in Whitmire. Hard hooks to the body from Whitmire. I don't know if this is going to last around, folks. Another left hook sits Foreman down, and the referee has seen enough. A successful pro debut for the amateur standout, Dave Whitmire out of Washington, D.C. And that's the right stoppage, too, folks. If it's your pro debut, there is absolutely no need to be taking unnecessary punishment, especially when the fight is getting away from you very quickly, which it was. Foreman came out like a bat out of hell. Whitmire weathered the short-lived but early storm. And if you take a look at the highlights here, look at that left hook. Gets him to extend on the jab. The right hand wasn't upstairs to protect himself, and he just whipped it around the corner. By the way, interesting trajectory, too, because it kind of came from the waist a little bit. Just a short left hook, and that one sits him down for the second time. Referee has seen enough. And by the way, the corner threw the towel there on the right-hand side of the screen anyway. Good call by the corner there. No need for that to go any further. Can't say that you learned a whole lot. Can't say that you learned a whole lot necessarily from this one. You didn't get a thorough auditing of either guy, but a nice performance from Whitmire to kick things off here in his professional career. In this particular case, it's super welterweight. Looked like he had a great jab. Looked like he had great ring generalship. As I mentioned before, had the right strategy. Was able to not get run over by the initial enthusiasm of Foreman, and then slowly pick him apart with the jab, draw out reactions, create openings, and then close the show from there, which is exactly what you saw. I don't have the official information yet. They've not announced the timing. I think they're going to do it right here, right now. They've not announced the timing of the stoppage. We'll get that to you here in just a minute. But an early first round stoppage, I think it's sometime inside the final minute of the first round. So it's runner by TKO. Then they call him the body snatcher from Washington, D.C. at 2:10 of the first round is the time. 2:10. Great win by David Whitmire. And by the way, it's something you'll see a lot. If you actually go to the prelims at boxing cards or you check out regional fights whenever they happen, you'll see this fairly frequently. Just like one more look here at the highlights. Good left hook there. Again, from Whitmire. Sits him down. Referee had seen enough. He was already hurt from the previous one and simply could not gather himself. And by the way, you'll note no resistance there from Foreman as the referee intervened. But the point I wanted to make there was simply that a lot of times what you'll see in pro debuts is one fighter, sometimes both, but usually one fighter trying to win on blitzing, right? I don't mean just closing distance that way, but just trying to overwhelm the other fighter with an initial onslaught. And by the way, if someone's making their pro debut, even if they've had a good amateur background, you don't know, they might crumble underneath that kind of onslaught. A lot of people do. They lose composure, they lose bearing, and they can't quite figure out a way to get going. It's a very common tactic with people who lack experience. But it shows you a lot about Whitmire that he was able to, again, it wasn't a very lengthy storm, but at least have an opponent who was shot out of a cannon to get things going, whether it turn the tables, take center, use the jab, create openings, and then close the show. That's exactly what you would want to see from someone like him. All right, let's remind everyone and reset here if we can. Coming up next is going to be a 4-round heavyweight contest between Daniel Perot and Daniel Zavala. This is an interesting one here a little bit. Perot, you might note, has the same last name as the gentleman opening up the main card. And you'd be right. Pero, both of them, the brothers, are from Cuba. Denier, who's on the prelim card, as I mentioned, taking on Daniel Zavala. What's interesting about him is that he has a win over his brother's opponent tonight in Victor Faust. So Lanier Pero is taking on Victor Faust to open up the main card. From the amateurs, Denier Pero has a win over Faust. But he is, of course, with 2 fights into his career, 2 KOs. He's trying to get things going and on the right track. That will be next. And as I mentioned, because they're relatively inexperienced in the professional ranks anyway, that will just be a 4-round contest. We have 2 more 8-round contests for you coming a little bit later. But let's set up for everyone here. Reminder, you're watching Showtime Championship Boxing Countdown. This, of course, is the Vargas versus Foster prelims. And if you want to get Showtime, by the way, because tonight's main card is going to be airing on Showtime, let's remind everyone how you can get that. You can go to Showtime.com. You can get a 30-day free trial. If you like it, you can keep it. If not, you are certainly welcome to bounce. But that is available to you. You can go right now, and you get, of course, not just Showtime Championship Boxing. You can get Bellator MMA. You can get everything that airs on Showtime, including everything that comes with the app and all of the library therein. Lots of good stuff there. So go to Showtime.com today to get your free trial started. We'll remind you about that. Of course, some other ways you can bundle that with Paramount Plus through the course of the broadcast. Let's reset for a bit. I've told you what's next on the prelim card, but of course, why we're here. We're here for a phenomenal contest. Rey Vargas moving up to 130 pounds, taking on Oshaki Foster. This is a great contest for a lot of reasons. Vargas is undefeated at 36-0. I believe he's 32 years of age, of course. This will be a 12-round contest for the WBC super featherweight title here. But the reason why I love this contest is because Rey Vargas has almost quite literally an impeccable resume, right? 36 wins, no defeats, no draws. He has 2 world titles. He is looking for a third. Standing in his way is Oshaki Foster. As I mentioned, it looks like Oshaki. It's pronounced Oshaki. Foster is a very quiet guy, very, very humble guy, not a big talker at all. Certainly not the kind of guy from a fighting perspective who lays back. But, he's not going to give you crazy sound bites in the media. He's not going to talk a ton of smack. It's really not who he is. And he's a guy that I think a lot of folks either forgot about or look the other way or just haven't put top of mind. And you can understand some of the reasons. He has not 1, but 2 losses before even getting to 30 fights, right? Before even getting to, I think, double-digit fights, right around that mark. He already had 2 losses that he experienced on ShowBox. Now, as he explains it, one of them was in November in Vegas, and it was outdoors, and it was freezing. Another time, he had an issue with a guy who was his promoter at the time. He has since moved on from there. And as I mentioned before, on a 9-fight win streak, he has looked excellent. He calls himself at times a bit of a boxer puncher. I think there is some question about on the punching side how true that fully is, although we have seen him drop opponents certainly in numerous occasions. But he's more boxer than puncher, but certainly can play the levels a little bit. But you have to love his story where he almost makes an Olympic team, not quite, and has these 2 losses and kind of has to figure out, where am I going in this career at this moment? What am I really doing with my life? Am I hanging around the right people? And of course, he also found himself in and out of juvenile detention centers and jail, even facing 10 to 20 for some issues related to some misconduct around 2016. And he just said, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to live this way anymore. I want to get right. And he eventually did. And certainly the results have spoken for themselves. Slick, accurate, has a little bit of pop, as I mentioned, can do a lot. Very much, I think, between the two, the more of the slickster. Here's the difference, though. Vargas has much better experience against much better guys, has beaten very legitimate competition, albeit not in this weight class, as this is his debut in that weight class, but really has just about every accolade I think a professional boxer would want, and has not been looked over, has not been forgotten, has not, to the reality of the situation, has not tripped up himself and had to figure things out and rescue himself from various bad points in his career. But the reason why I like it is beyond just sort of the setup about who's regal in the sport and who's not. More to the point, Foster told my co-host, I do a podcast, that's a Showtime produced podcast, called Morning Combat. And on this podcast, my co-host Brian Campbell interviewed Foster and asked him, when you say that you've been forgotten and looked past and been the underdog your whole life, I mean, everyone's got a hard scrabble story. I wonder how many of you heard what he told my co-host Brian. He said that this is actually a little dark, if I can be honest with you, but it is what he said. It was an official interview, and it was on the record. He said that he didn't realize how unwanted he was by, the people he was around, and also like by the people who raised him. And he could never figure out why there were no baby pictures of him anywhere, or very little anyway. And it's because he says he wasn't wanted. That is a brutal thing to hear. That's a very difficult thing to hear. We're talking about a guy who came from, whatever the opposite of an advantaged, I should say, background. That's what Foster comes from, to the nth degree. And that explains, if you look at his career, why he's had some really great moments of ability and accomplishment, some of the early setbacks, but why he has now at age 29 found himself in his very first world title fight. Taking on Rey Vargas here tonight. This is the first time that Foster has been in this position. So you have this real juxtaposition here going on tonight in this Showtime Championship Boxing main event, with Rey Vargas undefeated, right? Having the hometown crowd, or I should say hometown in the sense that he'll have most of the people in attendance cheering for him. Obviously, he is from Otumba, Mexico. But you've got all of these accolades. He's the one coming in as the two-weight world champion. He's the one who's coming in as the A-side. He's the one coming in with the crowd on supporting him. He's the one coming in, having proven himself in not merely one, but two, looking for a third weight class, taking on a guy like Foster, who has many of the opposite situation going on for him. His resume is not without blemish. He has 2 losses. He doesn't have all of the weight class championships to show for. He doesn't really have any of the things that really make Vargas the kind of special fighter that he is. And yet, if you look at the odds on this one, they are extremely close. They have, most places, if you look out there, will have Vargas as a ever so slight favorite. And they've got Foster as an ever so slight underdog. Just the narrowest of margins. Barely above a pick'em is what you have here. And if you talk to some folks inside boxing, and I talked to a few prepping for today's broadcast, what do you think of Foster's chances? Many of them think an upset is not merely possible, of course, in the technical sense it always is, but probable, likely, in fact. Several I spoke to think that, yeah, Vargas is the real deal. He's as good as advertised. There's not a thing wrong with him. But remember something, Foster is criminally underrated, is probably the better slickster of the two, does have the height disadvantage he's going to have to overcome, but does not giving up anything with reach. However, I think he's got the much faster feet, and I do think he's the more technical of the two. But here he has an opportunity to, what's the word of Teddy Atlas, 30 minutes to make your life fair? That's what Foster's up against here tonight. He's got about, a little more than that, obviously, depending on how things go, but about 30 minutes to make life fair. That's really what he is trying to do here tonight. And doing it up against a guy in Vargas who has proven everything he possibly could at this point, is just trying to not pad the record books with meaningless accomplishments. I don't mean that, but what I would say is, what does a guy who's 36-0, who's a 2-weight world champion, have to prove to you or me? Nothing. He has nothing to prove in that sense. But he wants to prove to the world that he should be considered among some of the greats. Like, if you look at some of the Mexican champions, by the way, who have weight classes, titles in 3 different divisions, you're talking about guys like Chavez, like Morales, like I think Showtime's own Abner Mares, right? We're talking about guys who have done pretty special things. He's just trying to put his name among those greats. Should be noted that Vargas, of course, is coming off of that excellent fight last year against Mark Magsayo. And, of course, Mark Magsayo has a fight coming up against Brandon Figueroa. We'll talk about the calendar a little bit later in the show. But he didn't defend that title. And he got dropped in the 9th against Magsayo. Now, credit to Vargas, of course, for getting off the canvas and winning in whatever way he needed to. I think that part was obviously pretty tremendous. And coming up a weight class, doing what he needed to do there. But he never defended that belt. in as many fights, he's trying to now jump up another weight class to 130 to see what he can do up there. Here's why this is important for any number of reasons beyond what I've already mentioned, stylistically and the way in which Vargas is chasing history. But just more than that, he's never, I should say not never, he hasn't stopped anyone inside boxing in over 6 years. And that's only one fight at 126 pounds, the rest of those being predominantly, I believe anyway, 122. So we're talking at 122, he's had some stoppages, but it's been a while. And of course, he did lose about 2.5 years, of course, with the running accident where he broke his leg in the mountains. Of course, that sidelined him, but you get the idea. Nevertheless, it's been several bouts before we've had a chance to see him put anyone away. And here he is against Foster, who's got good defense, fast hands, fast feet. By the way, Foster has fought above this weight class. He's fought as high as 140. He's fought at 135. He's at 130 here today. Both of them made weight. They looked great at the weigh-ins. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about here. Foster already hard to hit, probably going to be able to tolerate heavy punchers anyway. And a guy like Vargas, who is accurate and does have good volume, but not so much a thumper, certainly not at 130 that we think, it creates for a very interesting style matchup. It creates for very interesting stakes. For Foster, everything he's been waiting for and then some. For Vargas, a place among just the rarest of rarefied air. Now, let's put a pin in that conversation. We'll come back to it. Let's sort of set up exactly where we are at the present moment. The fighters are being introduced right now in the ring at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, when Daniel Perot takes on Daniel Zavala. This will be a 4-round heavyweight contest. As I mentioned, Perot is the brother of Lanier Perot, who will open the main card against Victor Faust, also in a heavyweight contest. Should be noted, the Perot brothers are from Camagüey, Cuba, the same place as Luis Ortiz. Don't know what was in the water out there, but they're producing some excellent heavyweights all the way through. So this will be a 4-round contest. I'd be a little bit surprised if it goes that long, just being candid, but I guess we shall see. This, of course, will be the 3rd professional fight for Perot. This will be the 6th professional fight for Zavala. He has no KOs through 5 contests. Perot has 2 wins, and both of those have came by way of KO. They received their final instructions, and now they head back to their corners. And we'll have them on the books here for 4 rounds if it goes that long. Here we go. Already you can see Perot sitting in southpaw, Zavala out in orthodox. You know what I don't want to do is shame the physique of Zavala, but I'll be candid and say I'd be surprised if he lasted the full duration of this contest. That's as nice as I can be. Perot taking his time, although already landing kind of when he wants to. You're seeing Zavala just put his head down and barrel into him a little bit here. Left hand finds the mark and kind of wobbles Zavala there for a bit. He covers up and is still kind of charging forward. Hard left to the body. Yeah, this is going to be target practice for Perot, as long as he's careful. Good lefts to the body already from Perot. Man, he's not even really having to move or reset angles. Folks, I don't know if this one's gonna. I don't know if this one is gonna see the second round. Pero just able to keep Zavala at the total end of his punches and then land with near impunity, it seems like. Zavala nearly had him against the ropes, but is eating right hooks and now lefts upstairs and down. No real meaningful offense to speak of. Yeah, this is not difficult work for Pero. Real basic combinations from Pero. Just kind of keeping his hands moving. Doesn't look like he's chasing the knockout. He certainly does not need to. Zavala might last the round, folks. I found that nearly impossible to believe, but here we are. Although, candidly, if you're in Zavala's corner, do you really send him out for the second round? I suppose they might, but this has been one-way traffic. And there's the first round in the books. Zavala looks marked up, to put it candidly. Pero broke a sweat. That was just... Zavala stood right in front of him. There wasn't much to that in terms of X's and O's. I'm not even sure if Pero had lead foot positioning where he would have preferred to have it, because he wasn't really challenged in a way where he had to set that up as fully as you might imagine. I'd love to see a replay if we get a chance. But round one between Pero and Zavala in the books here, 4-round heavyweight contest. Round two is next. You can see the referee here, very within his right, warning Zavala, hey man, you gotta do a little bit more than just tolerate abuse. Doesn't look to me like the corner looks too concerned, but I guess we shall see. All right, round two coming up. Pero in the kind of light blue trunks, Zavala in the green. Zavala showing a little bit more urgency to start, but that likely could spell his demise even quicker. Yeah, I'm looking at the feet now of Pero. And he's more or less just kind of squared on the inside. These are good shots with the left hand of Pero. Right? Sneaky uppercuts. Straights to the body. Hooks. It's active. It's effective. Powerful. And so far, it just can't miss. Zavala trying to clinch. Pero just throwing him off. A right hook to the body there from Pero. Now an uppercut to Zavala. Man, if Zavala's landed a punch this round, I'm not sure I remember it. Now you're seeing Pero land lead and rear hand uppercuts. Pero just measuring with the right. Throwing with the left. Zavala showing some heart. Trying to push through. Yeah, uppercut, left hook. Left straight, right to the body. Zavala trying to come back. I mean, his tolerance for punishment is extraordinary. Trying to push Pero backwards. and finding he is sturdy in positioning. Certainly the stronger athlete of the two. And it looks like Zavala's going to make it out of the round. Surprising. But we head to the third, ladies and gentlemen. It is merely academic how to score this one. I'm a little bit surprised that Zavala's corner is going to send him out for a third round, but stranger things have happened. But here we have it. Pero taking on Zavala. Heavyweight contest. 4 rounds, 2 down, 2 to go if it lasts that long. And right now, the Cuban in Pero in total control. It also looks to me like, based on just a few factors, including but not limited to the kind of punishment that Zavala has taken, these are far from Pero's hardest punches. He's landing accurately and often, and in very, very heavy work, but he's, I would argue, holding back from what he could actually throw. Probably to get more experience. Also, Zavala is tough. Here we are, round 3. From the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. Let's see if Pero does anything a little bit differently this time. Because he's been landing that uppercut. He's been landing the right to the body. He's been landing the left straight to the body. Let's see if he puts anything else together. I mean, it's not like he needs to switch it up. It's not like it's not working. But there's that right to the body. Beautiful shot there from the Cuban heavyweight. Yeah, this is just great work. Light on his feet from Pero, able to score and move. Landing upstairs, landing downstairs, left side of the body, right side, turning his opponent, just getting him to cover up. He can't meaningfully get anything really going. Again, I'm not sure if Pero has taken a punch since the first round that is anything more than grazing. This is just the Cuban in total control. And it's not like Pero really necessarily needs it, and you're not seeing it as much this round, but still the jab is a big prominent part. Now here we go. Now he's beginning to put some of the harder punches together in combination. That uppercut has been a moneymaker for him this entire fight. Now it looks like Pero might be chasing the finish, ladies and gentlemen. And there's Zavala hanging on. Wow, I mean, he is going to work on Zavala here. Daniel Zavala in a world of trouble against this Cuban sensation, Daniel Pero. And I got to tell you, for a big guy, he's got a pretty steady output as well, without getting too tired. Again, only the third professional contest here for Daniel Pero. I will tell you, it is impressive, the chin of Zavala, because he has taken an absolute beating here tonight. Somehow, miraculously, this fight goes to the 4th round. I cannot believe it, but here we are. This will be the final round of this contest, a heavyweight contest. And Pero would have to be flatlined at this point in order to lose. Look at some of these highlights. You can just see he's able to step back, just remeasure with the jab, and he goes back to the uppercut, body shot, jab, cross, turning here at the angle, pushes him off inside the clinch, and he gets right back to it. Jab, cross, uppercut, you name it. Just able to do almost whatever he wanted to in this contest. Some punches landing seemingly at will. So this is the last round. Zavala, credit to him, tough as nails, heading out there one more time. He will need the most dramatic of comebacks to win this one. It seems almost impossible, quite candidly. But we shall see. Right now, the Cuban doing phenomenal work, and I suspect that his brother will look to do the same when he opens the main card against Victor Faust at 9 p.m. in the East, when the Showtime Championship Boxing main card kicks off on Showtime. That'll be a fun one from San Antonio. All right, fourth and final round. Here we go. I didn't think it would get here, but it got here. And so far, there is simply no other way to score this bout as anything other than for Perot, but we shall see if he can finish it. Or if Zavala can do something meaningful with his offense in this fourth and final frame. Doesn't look to me like Zavala's necessarily, and this has probably been true for some time, but saying it now, it doesn't look to me like he's putting himself in a position to win, more so just to survive. And you have Zavala here in the center of the ring, but the rhythm disruption by Perot, and then behind it, just the huge punches he's landing, Zavala simply has no answer for. He goes with a jab left hook on the same side and can't get much from it. Here you see Perot reset the angle, frames, blinds with the right, and then goes to the body with the left. Now he's touched him with the left. There's going to be that right to the body uppercut, and he gets right back to doing the things he's been doing this entire fight. Just phenomenal combination work. Loving how he goes touch, touch, go, changing up speeds, changing up intensity, and then just letting him rip against a relatively stationary opponent. Excuse me. The referee warning the fighters, in particular Perot, about pushing too hard. If you're Perot, you got to be happy with how easy this has come. On the other hand, you have to be a little bit surprised he couldn't close the show. It wasn't like his opponent was unwilling to throw, but had outrageous defense. Nevertheless, a solid performance for the Cuban. Again, only in his third professional contest. We have to have some managed expectations about that. And looked like he had great combination work in this contest. Did everything he was supposed to. And is going to close out this fourth and final round. No doubt about it, having won this contest here on this evening for the Vargas Foster event on Showtime Championship Boxing. And there you have it. I will have to eat my own words here on the broadcast, because I believe I started out suggesting to you all that there was no way this was going to go the distance, and sure enough it does, albeit I'm not sure that it needed to, and there is certainly no disputing the outcome here. Daniel Perot is going to win this one easily. He shouldn't lose a round. I don't think he'll get any of the rounds 10-8. It wasn't that kind of a beating, but nevertheless, this is an easy academic scoring job for the judges in Texas tonight. So as they get cleaned up and the commission totals the judges' scoring, the cards on this one, we'll get the numbers here in just a second. There you can see Bob Santos, who of course was in Washington, D.C. here recently in January in the corner of Hector Luis Garcia, taking on Tank Davis. And there he is with this Cuban sensation, Daniel Perot, and his brother, of course, Lanier Perot, two phenomenal heavyweights out of the island of Cuba, which has produced, of course, any number of excellent boxing talents throughout the years. All right, we're just awaiting the decision here. Let's go to Miguel Flores to get the final call.
4 rounds of boxing, we go to the judges' scorecards. Judges Ursulo Perez and Ruben Carrion both saw it 42-36. And Judge Ellis Johnson sees it 42-35. All three in agreement for your winner by unanimous decision, Daniel, the Cuban Missile.
There you have it. Unanimous decision win for Daniel Perot. 40-36 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. 40-35 on one of them, which means without a knockdown, he was able to get a 10-8 round on one of the judges' scorecards, at least on one of the rounds on one of the judges' scorecards. I wish I could get a copy of that to see which one they gave him that one. Probably the third, maybe the second, something like that. In any case, easy, light work for Daniel Perot here in his 3rd professional contest. As we mentioned, his brother will open up the main card at 9 p.m. on Showtime Championship Boxing when he takes on Victor Faust. Faust lost to Daniel Perot in the amateurs. So this will be a fun one when they get things going with the big shots at 9 p.m. Let's reset here for just a moment if we can. My name is Luke Thomas, of course. I am one half of the hosting duo of Morning Combat. We host a combat sports podcast with Brian Campbell. He'll, of course, be there tonight in San Antonio interviewing the winning fighters after their performances. And we host a podcast Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live 11 a.m. in the East. Plus, we do tons of post-fight work as well as stuff like this. So if you want a good combat sports talk, hey, we just got back from London, England, where we headlined a podcast festival. It was a lot of fun. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, see us there, youtube.com/morningcombat. I also want to remind everyone about how they can get Showtime. Of course, you're watching this on the prelims. I mentioned, of course, there's Showtime.com 30-day free trial. I can also steer you in a bit of a different direction. You can bundle Showtime with Paramount Plus if you so choose. You can try 30 free days with the code ALLNEW23. That's all one word, ALLNEW23. You can go to ParamountPlus.com/Showtime bundle. One more time, you can try 30 days free of Showtime within Paramount Plus. Use the code ALLNEW23 and go to ParamountPlus.com/Showtime bundle. Of course, your main event today, we've talked a lot about Rey Vargas taking on O'Shaquie Foster for the vacant WBC super featherweight crown. Some of the other champions at 130, you have Emmanuel Navarrete, you have Hector Luis Garcia. You got a couple folks there where the winner of tonight's fight would be in an interesting position to see if they can make any of those other fights happen. But I'd be remiss if we didn't get a chance to talk about the very interesting co-main event on this card. Mario Barrios out of San Antonio, of course. By the way, now he has moved his training camp away from Virgil Ortiz and with Bob Santos. Now, he was with Bob Santos previously, and then, got away from that to go be with Virgil. Now he's back with Bob Santos. As he explained at the pre-fight press conference, Barrios doesn't have any bad blood with Virgil Hunter. Did I say Virgil Ortiz? I apologize, Virgil Hunter. But, there's no animosity between them. There's no difficulties between them. There's no nothing. But he just felt like he needed to get back to where he was. And I also want to mention something, fighting at 147, he fought Tank Davis at 140, so he's a bit up a weight class. But what's going to be interesting in this one is he is riding a 2-fight losing streak, having fought Gervonta Davis, having fought Keith Thurman, and of course he got stopped by Davis, and he was decisioned by Thurman. He's trying to get right here. He's trying to get into the winning side of things. He's trying to prove that he didn't just go up to the elite of both 140, or in this case 147, and then find himself lacking. Yes, he did stumble here, but what he wants to prove is he is of that ilk. He is of that caliber, of that level, and he just needs the right opportunity to grow into that, the right opportunity to prove it, and he's going to get that opportunity against Giovanni Santiago out of Puerto Rico. By the way, he goes by the name El Lobito, which means the little wolf, if my Spanish is correct. We'll put a pin in that conversation. We'll come to it. Let me set up where we are right now. The third of our 4 fights here tonight on the Showtime Championship Boxing Prelims Countdown card. This is a 8-round middleweight contest between Yumir Marcial, who is 3-0, taking on Ricardo Villalba, who is 27-1 with 8 KOs. Villalba out of Argentina, so, they might pronounce his last name Villalba. But in any case, Villalba, however you want to call it, he is the pro here and the experienced pro by a considerable margin, taking on the, at least in terms of boxing, relatively inexperienced Yumir Marcial, who has 1 KO out of 3 fights. By the way, as you can see, Marcial out of the Philippines. This is a fun one for him. And I believe he has got a ton of other combat sports experience. But in boxing, he last competed in October of 2022. So he's getting right back at it here, Marcial. All right, folks, so there you have it. 8-round middleweight contest, Marcial and Villalba. Referees giving the fighters their final instructions here as they meet in the center. This should be a fun one. All right, there we have it. So here we have it. Marcial out of the Philippines, taking on Villalba out of Argentina. And there we have it. In the southpaw stance, with Air Force on his trunks, is Marcial, and Villalba in the white and blue. By the way, characteristic of the Albiceleste. All right, so you guys feeling each other out. Again, you got a southpaw versus orthodox, so you want to pay attention to lead at foot positioning. It doesn't have to be outside, but it is a common tactic for the aggressing fighter. Also, pay attention to any potential headbutts. It does happen a lot when you have opposite stances facing one another. Marcial with a good jab, and now doubling it up and then going to the body, rolling underneath a follow-up attack from his opponent, who, by the way, got square for just a second there as he tried to change stances. As you can see, he's already done. But it doesn't look like it's materially improved his conditions. He goes back to switching stances. So the Argentine already trying to play with stance. We'll see how much that actually benefits him in the end. Consistent, hard jabbing, and now a good left straight to the body from Marcial. So far, Villalba lunging in from far outside, which is giving Marcial the timing and the distance he needs to get away from most of it. You can see they nearly clashed heads there, and now Villalba kind of playing with stance very loosely, fading in and out of orthodox and southpaw. Just a little bit off balance at times to me doing it. Good jab from Marcial, popping the head back of the Argentine opponent. And he's down. Villalba is down already in the first round. And he stands at the 8 count. Hard body shot with a right over the top from Marcial. Villalba's going to make it out of the round. Already touching the canvas here in the first. Wow. Hot start for the Filipino fighter in Marcial in round one. Let's take a look at the highlight here. Jab, double jab, left hook to the body. Oh, and he blinded him with the second one. And he used the double jab, of course, to cheat the distance to get him into that space that he needed. Watch it one more time. And by the way, look at him shift his lead foot positioning to the outside of Villalba as he doubles up on the jab. So he's doubling up on the jab so he can turn that angle, cover that outside angle that he needs, close the distance, and set up that alley left hand right to the body. Just really, really good work from Marcial in the first round. And you can see the corner there of Villalba giving him what I hope is tactical improvements he can implement into his game, because it looks to me like Marcial is not just a sharper boxer, but just has the clearer strategy of the two as well. Villalba seems a little aimless. You can see him switching stances and getting underneath some punches, but then finding himself right in line for others as he plays with stance. By the way, I love that left hand to the body from Marcial. Sometimes it's a straight left. A lot of times it's a sweeping left that comes real low and then up almost. Good left hand. Hurts the Argentine. Folks, I don't know. And then that right hand drops him. Villalba is down for the second time in as many rounds in this middleweight contest, and the referee has seen enough. Marcial, 4 fights, 4 wins, and now 2 KOs on his record. Very, very clinical job by this young man out of the Philippines. What a job he turned in tonight. Let's take a look at the replay. There's that jab, another jab, and then the double jabbing pushes him back. It does so many things for him. Doubles it up again, kind of resets. He eats a shot and just has no ability to quickly recover. This is all about angles. And then look at that left hand. Just phenomenal work. It's another right hook. So he goes jab, straight, and then the right hook afterwards comes through. And Villalba of Argentina just simply had no answer for it. No ability to get away. And the switching of the stances didn't meaningfully add anything to what he was trying. You can see the referee there closing it off. What a absolute clinical job turned in by Eumir Marcial. 2 rounds, drops his opponent in the first, drops him in the second, twice, and the referee says, yeah, we've seen enough. Good call, by the way, by the referee. You're not going to hear me complain about a stoppage in a case where a guy is that badly overmatched. We don't have the timing yet from the ring announcement. We'll get that here in just a minute. I'll share with you what information that is. But obviously, it continues the unbeaten streak of Marcial out of the Philippines. They're going to read the result here in just a second. And of course, that was supposed to be an 8-round contest. But he managed to get it done inside 2. The production crew will tell me here in just a second what time that was. But phenomenal job by him. 48 seconds of round number 2 for Eumir Marcial. 48 seconds. Great job by him. Good southpaw who knew how to use southpaw tactics to get the job. As you can see, doubles up on the jab and then goes to the right. It pushes the opponent back. Look at him square now. He tries to stagger his stance. He gets hit with the right hook, backing up, and just can't deal with it. He couldn't find a place to hide or cover in the ring. Marcial had too many weapons, closing him up, backing him up, pressing into him, pulling back out at times when he needed to. You love to see the sportsmanship between them. That's what it's all about. But in the end, Eumir Marcial just vastly, vastly superior to Ricardo Villalba. And ladies and gentlemen, we have, as I mentioned, 4 fights for you on the preliminary broadcast here tonight. We only have 1 left. We just have 1 left. We have an 8-round lightweight contest between Claudio Morero taking on Gonzalo Fuenzalida. Fuenzalida previously out of Chile, now living out of Las Vegas, Marrero, a Dominican fighter who has done really well for himself, but is trying to get things going after suffering a series of defeats. So that's what's left for us. That'll be an 8-round lightweight contest. Marrero has played with a lot of weight categories below that, trying to get things going again for himself. By the way, a multiple Showtime veteran, Marrero, trying to get things going for himself here at lightweight against Gonzalo Fuenzalida. Just to reset, everyone, my name is Luke Thomas. This is your Showtime Championship Boxing Countdown. This, of course, are the prelims for the Vargas versus Foster card, which takes place 9 p.m. triple header on Showtime tonight, 9 p.m. in the East, pardon me. Showtime triple header headlined by that fantastic super featherweight contest between Rey Vargas and O'Shaquie Foster. I had mentioned prior to the last fight what a great co-main we have for you guys tonight. Let's talk about that a little bit more. Mario Barrios taking on Giovanni Santiago. Giovanni Santiago, El Lobito, the little wolf, out of Puerto Rico. He comes into this contest at age 33 with a record of, I believe, 14-2-1. He last competed against Gary Antoine Russell on the Ubali versus Donaire card back in 2021, so he missed all of 2022. This is his first fight back, obviously, in 2023. And Mario Barrios coming to us from a slightly different position. Mario Barrios, 26-2, 27 years of age. As we mentioned, having left Virgil Hunter and now going back with Bob Santos after suffering a string of losses, I should say 2 losses, Gervonta Davis, which he suffered in June of 2021, but then more recently in February, about a year ago, around this time, he also lost to Keith Thurman. So he, of course, is at 147 now, and he really wants to get back to a place where he was. I mean, if you remember what the word on Mario Barrios was heading into the contest with Tank Davis, which was that he had done some great things, hadn't beaten anyone yet, had gotten a weight class title, but hadn't really kind of put his mark on the division. And you thought, well, maybe if he can beat Tank Davis, or at least make a strong account of himself, this will be his chance to really shine on the big show. And he made a strong account of himself, but ultimately got stopped, I believe, with body shots in the 11th round, something like that, around the 11th round against Tank Davis, and then just kind of got a little bit outclassed, basically, against Keith Thurman, even though Keith Thurman is, certainly in a more senior stage of his career than he's ever been. And so this fight, what does it represent for Mario Barrios? Back in his hometown, co-main event role. You're not on pay-per-view, but you're certainly in against a quality opponent on a important card. This is a chance to get right. This is a chance to, okay, you stepped up to the Davises, you stepped up to the Thurmans. It didn't go well, but at 27, there's still a chance for it to go to a place where you can say, I was among the elite, right? You that's still on the table as something that is certainly not inevitable. Nothing is really inevitable in that sense, but very possible. Very much on the table as a realistic achievement. Not that beating Santiago gets you that, but it puts you back on the road towards that. Of course, to get that, you have to beat other elite opponents at the very, very top of that division. But this is about getting back to a place where he can start that process. I think that's what this is about. And I think also if the issues are, he's having great trainers, but getting back with Bob Santos, it seems like we got to get into the right weight class for wherever he's at 27 years of age. It seems like getting back to the right training environment, whatever that's supposed to be as well, right? Putting all of the pieces of your life together in the way that they're supposed to be. And then once everything is sorted in that way, really leaning in and seeing what you could do. Because if you looked at what he was doing with his career before that, he beat some good fighters, Mario Barrios, but he never beat great ones. Steps up to the great ones, or the really good ones anyway, and finds himself lacking. You just can't accept that if you're him, right? You cannot accept that, oh, well, I went up and I tried and I wasn't good enough, and that's that. Only 27 years of age. You would have to imagine that they really believe, with some good reason, of course, that retooling things, changing up what needs to be changed, learning from these losses, letting them teach you what do they have to offer, what's available, what's there, and then regrouping and making another push at it, making a genuine attempt to get back to that place. For Santiago, this is a chance to, I think I would argue, get the win of his career. If you look at the names that he's beaten, he's faced some good guys. He faced, obviously, back in 2021, he faced Adrian Broner. It didn't go his way. He lost via unanimous decision. He got stopped by Gary Antoine Russell. You know, I don't know that he was necessarily ever in the same place that Barrios was, where it's like, well, is this guy really capable of a move to the very top of that division? But if you can slow down Barrios, if you can beat him, both guys with a win would stop their losing streak. Obviously, that is very critically important. That's sort of one really clear indication of necessity here. But the other one is, too, like you can change the way people talk about you. You can change the way that people perceive you in the sport. You can change your fortunes by virtue of raising your stock. This gets you that in a pretty dramatic way. I'm trying to look at the names that Santiago has faced. I don't think any of them have the level of cachet, even coming off those 2 losses, that Barrios has. Even that, this would be a dramatic win for him. This would be a huge win for him. This would be a very important win in the story of his career. He also, like Barrios, moves up to the upper end of that division, certainly against Gary Antoine Russell, and then found, at least on that night in 2021, found himself lacking. And by the way, hasn't competed since then. So this is a big chance for him. Neither of these guys, by the way, coming in with a whole lot of competition experience in the sense of like recently competing. Even for Vargas, that's actually pretty true. If you look at the main and co-main and who has been competing on these, it's kind of funny, right? So let's sort of take a look here, if we can, at the top. In the case of Rey Vargas, he last fought against Mark Magsayo. We talked about that. That was in July of 2022. He hasn't competed since then. For O'Shaquie Foster, he last competed against Yakubov in, March of last year. So it's been 11 months, almost a year for him. Barrios, as we mentioned, it's going to be about a year with his last loss to Thurman coming in February of last year. And then Santiago, as well, hasn't fought since 2021. So really, with the exception of Rey Vargas, who, by the way, lost a bunch of time, as we mentioned before, between 2019 and 2021 with that leg injury that he suffered on that run, and then he had to go up a weight class after everything as a consequence. He fought not at all in 2020, once in 2021, once in 2022, and this will be his first fight in 2023. So it's interesting to note, in the 4 fighters that are taking up the spot for the main and the co-main tonight, not that everyone's rusty, that's not exactly what I'm saying, but in more recent competition, it's been a little bit infrequent, right? They haven't been 4 fights in the last 12 months or something like that. They've been Vargas, again, about 6 or 7 months ago, so it's not that bad, but maybe closer to 8. But you see what I'm talking about here. Just not guys who have necessarily been super heavy on the competition side, waiting for the right opportunity, waiting for the right weight class, waiting for the right opponent, waiting for the right city, waiting for the right night. Foster is interesting too, because he was asked recently about, what would have happened if you had had title fights early into your career, and how would that have changed things for you? And his answer was he didn't really know. He just wasn't in the right space at that time to be dealing with that kind of thing, but now getting it later, right? And he wanted opponents to fight earlier than he had been. He didn't want to wait 11 months, but they weren't coming around. The phone wasn't ringing when it needed to, and when it was, the right names weren't there. And so finally, he actually gets a world title fight at 29 years of age. Yeah, it's been 11 months since he competed, and no, he wasn't really looking to lay off that time. But I believe he told Showtime's Brian Custer, this is the right time at the right fight. I'm getting a world title fight in the best stage of my career, in the best shape of my career, in the best run of my career, with all the maturity to live off both of the value of winning as well as understanding the significance of the losses, to put a second real, genuine effort together to get better. And now, at this much more senior, still in his 20s, although barely, but this much more senior level of his career, now he's ready to make use of these particular moments. Now he understands how to convert them and what they can do for him and how they can change his life and how he can thrive and get all the opportunities in boxing that he was looking for by becoming a world weight class champion. Here in this case, WBC World Super Featherweight title. So this is an interesting one. Lots of guys with, I'll say, big stakes involved in these matchups, coming off of very, and certainly in that co-main event, coming off of very uncertain times in their career. And really, it's going to be a question of between Barrios and Santiago about who can regroup more nimbly, who can regroup more easily, who can actually make a real push after having tasted what competition looked like at the higher end of that division. Can they actually make a push by reconstituting their efforts? Okay, is that something that's actually on the table? That's what they're looking for here. Huge, huge for them. And certainly in that main card opener between Lenier Perot and Victor Faust, by the way, 2 undefeated heavyweights. So tonight's main card will kick off with a fantastic heavyweight contest scheduled for 10 rounds between the brother of the gentleman we saw earlier, Lenier Perot, those will be his brother Lenier, taking on Victor Faust. Not a loss between them, nearly 20 fights in the pros as well. So big questions for them. Lots of fun on that one. Huge stakes, at least for like the very personal lives, certainly of Barrios and Santiago in that co-main. And then Rey Vargas looking to become something very, very special by being a 3-weight world champion, joining a list of just elite Mexican names, with Oshaki Foster, looking to play spoiler to that. And one thing I wanted to mention, I said it already, I'm going to mention it one more time, the odds on this main event. Super duper crazy close. Rey Vargas, very slightly, depending on where you look, a hardcore darling, certainly, but in terms of the odds favorite, barely a favorite as I speak to you today at this moment. Certainly this could change between now and fight time, but Foster just an ever so slight underdog, just a little bit. And the fight itself, by the way, is a really interesting technical matchup as well. Foster can play with stance and actually, not like the last opponent that we saw, but really make meaningful use of it. You see a lot of guys switch stance, and sometimes you're not exactly sure what benefit they get from it. And sometimes you watch them switch stance and you watch them get teed off on. You're like, I don't even know if this is a good idea for you at all, much less a neutral one. In the case of Foster, he can actually play the levels. He can actually stand for long durations of a bout in southpaw, for long durations of a bout in orthodox. He can do both relatively easily. I think in this one you'll see a little bit more orthodox to start, certainly, but that might change over time. We'll have to see. It will depend on whatever game plan he tries to come with there. But a very talented guy. He calls himself a boxer puncher. I tend to think he's going to be really hard to hit. His movement on the outside is very good. Foster's jab is quick. It's lengthy. It's versatile. It's consistent. I mean, he does a lot with it. And then what he's really good at, and you saw this in the Ring City USA fight he had, which was against Mickey Roman, where he was able to get him to get confused with the jab defense. So he'd bring his guard down, and then he pumped a quick 1-2 with a jagged timing behind it and caught him cleanly in that one, super cleanly. And then, of course, dropped him in that fight multiple times. He got the win in that one in just the 9th round. So an amazing job by him against Roman. But you get the idea what we're talking about here, right? He can be a great slickster himself, set things up real well. By the way, as he moves on the outside, another thing I love about Foster's game is how well he can pull guys into traps, right? So he can be on the outside, and the other person will have potential ring generalship benefits by commanding center, but he takes a lot of those away by pulling them as he rotates whatever direction he's going to. He pulls them into traps. So it looks like one guy's taking center, and it looks like the guy taking center is the one kind of controlling everything. But then when you watch very closely, you'll watch Foster pull him, depending on what angle he's hitting or what direction he's turning. He'll pull opponents into them, hit them, and then change direction, angle off, pivot off, and then start that process all over again. He's got those kinds of skills. And why do I bring that up? Vargas is the more proven one of the two, certainly at lower weight classes, but certainly, in terms of what he's accomplished, he's the more proven of the two. But he can at times, and you saw him try and duel a little bit in his last fight with Mexayo, with hard shots where he kind of leans into them and really wants to stick it to you. And if you want to joust and you want to duel, he'll do that kind of thing too. It'd be interesting to see what his forward pressure might look like against a guy who can stick and move in the ways that he can. We're talking about Foster. So that should be a really, really, really excellent contest between Vargas and Foster in that main event. Foster's first world title fight, had to wait till he was 29 years of age, but he finally gets it, and Vargas chasing a very special list of not just boxing, but in this particular case, Mexican three-weight champions. Just not many names on that list at all. So we've got one more for you, which will start, we got a few minutes before, but we got one more for you as a reminder on this Showtime Championship Boxing Countdown, getting ready for Vargas versus Foster, which, of course, as I mentioned, kicks off at 9 p.m. in the East. If you want to get Showtime and you don't have it, let's remind everyone, Showtime.com is a place you can go right now. You can go to Showtime.com, get a 30-day free trial. If you like it, you can keep it, and if not, you can bounce. In that main event tonight, which, of course, you can watch if you get it, you can get Bellator MMA and everything else that Showtime does. That will kick off at 9 p.m. in the East. But as I mentioned, we have one more fight for you here on the prelims for this card. Claudio Marrero out of the Dominican Republic, 26-5 with 18 KOs, takes on Gonzalo Fuenzalida. He is 12-1 with 3 KOs. He was previously out of Chile, although I believe he lives in Las Vegas today. That'll be an 8-round lightweight contest. Claudio Marrero has certainly, in fact, he lost his last fight, which I believe was on Showtime Championship Boxing as well. He loses that contest, but for folks who may not remember, I think his opponent was Xavier Martinez. He dropped him in that contest hard, a couple times actually in one round. He had one round where he had a 10-7 scorecard, but still just wasn't able to edge it out in the end. He is a very, very, very clever southpaw who can do a lot, but he has run into trouble in his last 3 of his last 4, and I think is looking for, with the time he has remaining in his career, I think 33 years of age, I'll double check that here in just a second, is trying to make use of his time and trying to switch things up by getting going again here, this time up a weight class. So he's riding a 2-fight win streak over Luis Ronaldo Castillo and then Victor Slavinsky. That was his last 2 fights. The last one of those was in 2022. This will be his first fight in 2023. He had the 3 of the 4 he had lost prior to this, one against King Tug. He rebounded against Eduardo Ramirez. He had a loss to Kid Galahad and then a loss to Xavier Martinez on that Lipinets versus Clayton card, and then rebounded against a couple of other guys here more recently, now taking on Fuenzalida out of Chile. A fun contest. A good southpaw in Marrero. Just needs, I think, to... I'll be curious to see how his power looks at this weight class. I'll be curious to see how his speed looks. He always looked to be pretty quick, and how that compares to Fuenzalida. But Marrero certainly has fought much better guys. He's fought much better guys stateside. Fuenzalida doesn't have the same kind of resume when it comes to noteworthy names or well-publicized cards or big boxing events. Marrero has been a little bit more of a part of that, relatively speaking. So I think that's going to give him some advantages in this contest. We'll have to see exactly, but it seems like that's a reasonable inference. As I mentioned, man, even in those losses, man, he's had a couple of like really, really, really good moments. Just not enough sustained offense in some of those fights. Not enough like full, complete round 1 to round 12, and being able to make a genuine, comprehensive effort to get those wins. Not that he looked bad. That's really not really the case, but just couldn't quite get over that hump. I think he's trying to do that here today, trying to get back, keep building on some wins to get some big opportunities and then convert therein. I mentioned he was 33. I want to double check. In fact, that is true. He is 33 years of age. And of course, as I mentioned, having fought King Tug and some other folks, he has fought Olympians and other ones as well. And between, I should say, of the 4 losses that he has, 2 of them came by stoppage, 2 by decision. The King Tug and the Xavier Martinez losses, They came via decision. As I mentioned, he gave Martinez the business in several spots in that fight. The Galahad and Rojas fights were ones where he was not able to get to the full distance. He got stopped in those two contests. So he's trying to see what he can do here. He's really trying to see what is left for him, what is possible. 33 is not old, but you don't have a ton of time necessarily, especially in a weight class like this at lightweight, where speed and reflexes are critically important, and they can also be the first to go. So this will be a big test for him. Let's see how much he can use that south. I feel like he's a southpaw, and that the fighting speaks to this. He's a southpaw where he uses that to his advantage. A lot of southpaws just don't really fight. They tell tall fighters to fight tall. You would want southpaw fighters to use some of those southpaw differences to make life miserable for their opponents by using some, clear pivoting out strategies and lead foot placement and everything else. He's real good about that. He's real good about making guys uncomfortable with those scenarios. So that'll be real fun. All right, as I mentioned, the main card, the triple header from San Antonio, it gets started at 9 p.m. in the East. A triple header for everyone here tonight on regular Showtime on TV. Of course, you can watch it through however you get your Showtime broadcast. Rey Vargas taking on O'Shaquie Foster for your WBC World Super Featherweight title, a 12-round contest in your main event there. Mario Barrios in the co-main event taking on Giovanni Santiago. Both of these guys looking to stop a 2-fight losing stretch. And then Lanier Perot taking on Victor Faust. Someone's O in that contest must go. 2 undefeated heavyweights to open up the triple header there in the San Antonio Alamo Dome on Showtime Championship Boxing here tonight. My name is Luke Thomas. I appreciate you guys joining me here as well. I'm trying to think, have I seen a fight live in the Alamo Dome? I don't think I have. I've been to a few other Texas ones, not the Alamo Dome. It always looks spectacular on television, and it's going to be interesting with Barrios in the co-main event, being from the area, those Mexican-American fans supporting Rey Vargas no matter what. By the way, Rey Vargas spells his first name like the word king in Spanish, which is just a great name. And then, of course, Foster pulling some people potentially from the Houston area. I'll be curious to see how that one looks. But the fighters are getting in the ring for our final preliminary fight tonight. But the 3-fight main card is going to be excellent and going to start at 9 p.m. in the East. So if you've not done everything you need to do to make sure you're set up for Showtime and Showtime Championship Boxing tonight, use the time remaining, I guess after the prelim fight, right? Use the time remaining to get that done. You will not regret it. A phenomenal card out there on Showtime tonight, kicking off at 9 p.m. in the East. Now, as I mentioned, this is the last of the 4 fights that have been a part of this Vargas versus Foster preliminary card, the Showtime Championship Boxing prelims. We are getting set for a 135-pound contest, a lightweight tilt between Claudio Marrero and Gonzalo Fuenzalida. We shall see what happens. Marrero, a guy who is not a stranger in any way to Showtime broadcasts, but trying to get right at 33 years of age, up a weight class. Actually, 135 is pretty big for him, against relative newcomer-ish Gonzalo Fuenzalida, previously out of Chile, now out of the Las Vegas area. He has a record of 12-1. Marrero at 26-5. Certainly in the case of the Dominican fighter, much more experienced. As you can see, the introductions here, this gentleman here is Gonzalo Fuenzalida. Just 3 KOs out of his 12 wins. Not a big power puncher. And I've seen some of the tape on him. A lot of fights in, again, less decorated, less well-known boxing areas. Hard to know exactly what the value of that experience will be, but we're going to find out against a guy who's got some real deal experience against good opponents on big cards in big areas of the fight game. You'll see he has 26 wins, 5 losses, 18 of those wins coming by way of KO. So a proven finisher, significantly more so than his opponent has been up to this point tonight. We will see how that goes when they finally touch gloves and get this contest going. As, of course, you can see, Marrero calls himself the Matrix. And referee, I believe that's, if I'm not mistaken, is that John Shorley? I think it is. giving them instructions in Spanish. Here we go. They go back to their corners. They've been given the final instructions, and we're about to be underway for the quote-unquote main event of the prelims here for Showtime Championship Boxing. Claudio Marrero taking on Gonzalo Fuenzalida. And here we go. Right away, you can see the feinting and the pressuring of Marrero. Fuenzalida circling to the outside of Marrero. So it'll be up to him to either get Fuenzalida to walk into something or to slow down the movement more generally. And right away, he goes left to the body. Both guys feeling each other out here. You can already tell the left hand might be a big weapon for Marrero. Yeah, Marrero just feeling him out. Fuenzalida doing the same. Both guys trying to find the right angle. And again, whenever you have southpaw versus orthodox, you're always paying attention to lead foot positioning. It does not have to be to the outside of the other guy, right? You can have lead inside foot positioning on the inside there if you want to jab, because it actually brings your lead shoulder closer. But a lot of times they want to land that bigger punch, which means the lead foot has to be on the outside. So just pay attention to the game they play there. Also, as I mentioned before, good left hand to the body, by the way. And now they're trading in the center. This is great. But pay attention to any potential head clashes as well. Boy, they're standing right in front of each other now. Big exchanges, taking turns with long combinations and trying to find little tiny openings. What Marrero just standing right in front of him, battering him with a right hook. Marrero looks to be the far stronger of the two. Marrero staying loose. Fuenzalida kind of a low, hunched over stance. L stepping and then a move to the left by Marrero. Big left hook misses for Fuenzalida as the round ends. So nothing too substantial, but it did look to me early like there was a big athletic difference. Let's take a look at the highlights. You see a bit of a flurry from Fuenzalida. Most of it misses. Marrero gets a little bit back and then turns the tables. He was facing outside, now he's facing inside. So even if he wasn't able to get a huge shot from it, he's at least able to change positioning with it. It shows you what kind of a skilled fighter he is. Take anything that's valuable you can from the situation and use it. He did exactly that. Standing, by the way, between rounds. As you see Fuenzalida very much sitting down. Again, doesn't necessarily tell you what's going to happen, but over time, that can prove to be highlighting of differences in cardiovascular conditioning. Round 2 coming up. Here on our final fight on the Vargas versus Foster prelims, Claudio Marrero taking on Gonzalo Fuenzalida here in an 8-round lightweight contest. Marrero in the matrixy green shorts. Fuenzalida in the red shorts there, the red trunks. Looks like there might be a speed difference, too, between Marrero and Fuenzalida. Good left hard shots to the body. Oh, looks like 2 right hands got through from Fuenzalida. Both fighters need to be careful. Fuenzalida, the more active here recently. Moreno kind of content to just wait for the right opportunity. A lot of clinching going on. Double left hook there from Moreno. That looked nice. Moreno doing a good job now of staying. Oh, there we go. Connects hard with a forward-moving Fuenzalida. I was going to say he was pushing him back. And then Fuenzalida tried to turn the tables and runs into a shot. Oh, good right hand from Fuenzalida as Moreno just kind of stays in position. Just doesn't seem like he's too fazed by the power. And now Moreno kind of leading the charge, pushing Fuenzalida back. And now they trade kind of in mid-range there a little bit. Good right hand. Excuse me, good left hand, I should say. From Moreno. Stumbles Fuenzalida for just an instant. Both fighters kind of trading shots there. Uppercuts for hooks. And the second round is in the books. Better round early for Fuenzalida. I don't know if he took it on the judges' scorecards, certainly, but better job early getting and staying with an offensive plan. Whereas before he seemed a little bit aimless. And now you'll notice, by the way, Moreno sitting between rounds, just like Fuenzalida is. So 2 rounds down, 6 to go if it lasts that long. Here for the final bout on the preliminary card. For Rey Vargas versus O'Shaquie Foster. At the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. There's a shot you see of Fuenzalida. Getting instructions. And round 3, we're about to get going here. Let's see if we can see an offensive identity from either of these fighters as we go into the third frame here of 8. All right. So you noticed a little bit at times, a little bit of a battle over lead hand positioning as well, right? Because both guys have this on the same side, their feet forward, the left foot of Fuenzalida, the right foot of Moreno. That means that the right arm of Moreno and the left arm of Fuenzalida are also in front. And now they're just trading, and they're both just eating bombs and letting it go. Fuenzalida, actually, I think, would be favored by this kind of style of fight. It's actually a more strategic fight at distance that'd be a little bit better, I think, for Moreno. But if he's willing to accommodate Fuenzalida on these terms, he's battering him too. It's not like he's not getting drilled, but that might improve his chances. Good left and right hooks to the body, back to back from Moreno. Nice sequence there. from Moreto of getting out of the way, then landing the left hand, using a little bit of a head to push his opponent back. I wonder if the referee's going to warn him for that. Good left hook there. Oh, good liver shot from Moreto. Drops Fuenzalida here in the third round. Double left hook. The second one to the liver, excuse me. Fantastic shot. Let's see if he can close the show here. Hard body shots from Moreto. Man, he is eating the guts of Fuenzalida alive right now. Hard body shots. Oh! Oh, I guess he got hit with a low blow there in the middle. But they are right back at it. 15 seconds remaining in the third round. And that does it. The big action in round 3, Claudio Moreto dropping Gonzalo Fuenzalida with a left to the body. Let's take a look one more time. Boom, right behind the elbow. Oh, and Fuenzalida, it took a second for the pain to register. You could see him try to cock back for a punch, but then he had to take a knee. Look at that left shot right there. And that one seemed to be a little bit lower. Hard to tell from this camera angle how low it actually was. Certainly both seem to recognize it as such. But the first one you saw that forced Fuenzalida to take a knee was an absolutely vicious shot. We'll see if he can get back to finding that body again. Something you would want to have anyway, a good body attack to resist and to slow down a pressure fighter in the way that Fuenzalida has been. Round number 4 of a scheduled 8, 135 pounds. Let's see what Moreto can do if he can, to potentially close this show. Or, conversely, if Fuenzalida can mount a comeback. Hard punches being these two are just exchanging in the middle. Moreto almost flat-footed. He switches stance for a second. He gets underneath the punch and they clinch. And now he's got his hands behind his back. Just briefly for a moment, they're back to boxing. A little bit of showboating there from Moreto. He's clearly feeling it. Let's see if he can put it together to get this W. You can see that Moreto just doesn't fear the body work of Fuenzalida at all. Doesn't want to get hit per se, certainly not in the face. Get his head popped back. It demonstratively looks bad for the judges. But in terms of the fear, what it's going to do to him, he doesn't have any. And you can kind of see as well, Moreto a little bit of the slickster of the two. Good slipping of the punches, good trunk movement, pivoting. Good counters here so far through this 4th round. And then he kind of shoulder rolls one of the punches off. Pushing Moreto, getting him to be off balance. Excuse me, Fuenzalida. Oh, and he drops him again. Again. Fuenzalida has been down twice through 4 rounds. The body work of Moreto has been overwhelming and punishing. Fuenzalida showing incredible heart. But Moreto in absolute control through 4 if this makes it out. We have 30 seconds left to go in this round. And Moreno, you can tell, just feels all the confidence in the world, not merely because he's up on the scorecards, but because of how well he is performing against this opponent here tonight in San Antonio, Texas. Through 4 rounds. Halfway down through the final bout on the main card. And like the second round, Gonzalo Fuenzalida down again. Another left hand, right hook, left to the body. Oh, what a combination! What a combination. I couldn't see it clearly in real time. That is such a shot. Look at him, changing positions, changing sides, going all over the place, bringing the hands, transferring the defense over, and then landing that left one more time. Just absolutely assassinating the body of Gonzalo Fuenzalida here tonight in San Antonio, Texas. So through 4, it seems like it's the Claudio Moreno show. We'll see what he can do through the final 4 rounds if it goes that long. Fuenzalida, if he wants to win, has got to get something going. We start round 5. Fuenzalida still trying to bring the fight to him here a little bit. But I think now much more cautious of playing inside that phone booth distance space right there again. He's going to have to work and then press out of it. Otherwise, he's going to get eaten alive like this. Oh, another left hand drops him. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Claudio Moreno. 3 left hands to the body, 3 knockdowns, and that's one hell of a win. Claudio Moreno getting it done against Chile's Gonzalo Fuenzalida. Couple times he, took some risks, I would say, Moreno. Couple times he took some risks. Absolutely. Put himself in the line of fire. But the body work. What did I say before the fight as well, right? A guy who is very good about using some of the advantages that can be conferred at times from a southpaw position. A slickster at times. And you got a good glimpse of that here tonight. 3 absolute dynamite left hands. All set up slightly differently, but the range, of course, is kind of the same. But nevertheless, the setup's a little bit differently. And Gonzalo Fuenzalida had nowhere to go. Right hand strafes to the body. Right hand left hook. And then another right hand upstairs. Would have landed, of course, but Gonzalo fell. And he just can't take anymore. He goes head first into the canvas. Look at this. Pressuring him through. He kind of rolls right, left. And then that left hand was just too much. He had to be much more of a stick and move guy. Stylistically, this was just a bit of a bad fight for Gonzalo Fuenzalida. That was too much of a slickster, by the way, an experience gap as well. We've not seen Fuenzalida on big cards against big name opponents in big nights like this. This is not a very typical thing that we have seen a whole lot of. So Moreno been to this kind of show before, done this kind of thing previously. And at 33, certainly this is his 3rd win in a row. You got to love that for him as well, getting himself back to a position where he could potentially make something of it. But he was just too much tonight for Gonzalo Fuenzalida. Hard to know exactly where he would go from here at 135. Just an 8-round fight. It's not like he's in a position to be a mandatory or get a title shot from it. None of those things are really necessarily in play. But you got to love the win. You got to love some of the mojo he showed, by the way. And you got to love the skills. Great body work. And by the way, just on a personal note, body shot KOs are some of the best in all of boxing. So they're going to announce this. The Dominican Republic's Claudio Moreno is going to get your win here tonight. I'll give you 43 seconds of the 5th round. 43 seconds is the marker of the time in that 5th round for Claudio Moreno. That moves his record to 27-5. So phenomenal job by him. That, of course, drops Gonzalo Fuenzalida to 12-2. Let's reset if we can, everyone. My name is Luke Thomas. Of course, I am usually one half of the hosting duo along with Brian Campbell. You will see him tonight on the Showtime regular broadcast when he's interviewing fighters after their contests. And, of course, if you want to watch, you know how to do that. The show will start, Showtime Championship Boxing, at 9 p.m. in the East. You can go to Showtime.com right now, get a 30-day free trial. Hey, if you like it, you can keep it. If not, you can get rid of it. It's entirely up to you, which, of course, will let you watch tonight's fights. It'll let you watch Bellator MMA, and, of course, everything else that Showtime produces. A triple header coming your way, 9 p.m. in the East. Rey Vargas taking on Oshaki Foster. Mario Barrios taking on Giovanni Santiago. And, of course, Lanier Perot taking on Victor Faust. Want to set the calendar up, though, a little bit before we go here today. Of course, just because things are happening in San Antonio doesn't mean everyone at Showtime's not getting ready for everything else that's coming up in the weeks to come. So, Friday, February 17th, live from Topeka, Kansas, Showbox, the Next Generation triple header will kick off this coming Friday, right? February 17th. Saturday, February 25th, you're going to be back with Showtime Championship Boxing when Subriel Matias takes on Jeremias Ponce. Of course, Saturday, March 4th, is Showtime Championship Boxing as well, when Brandon Figueroa takes on previous Rey Vargas opponent, Mark Magsayo. Of course, Jarrett Hurd will also be on that undercard. That'll be one to watch. Saturday, March 25th. You guys already know what time it is at 168 pounds. And on Showtime, pay-per-view, David Benavidez taking on Caleb Plant. Have you seen the press conferences? Have you heard the back and forth? Obviously, no titles on the line for that one, given that, the Canelo has unified him in that weight class. But Benavidez and Plant is for extraordinary bragging rights and just looks to be one of the most fun fights on the boxing calendar. About that, there can simply be no doubt. Obviously, we don't have anything 100% confirmed, but I don't think I'm out of place for saying I speak for all of us when I say April 15th and a potential fight between Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia can't be here soon enough. If and when that happens, of course, that will be on Showtime pay-per-view. But we're keeping you busy, folks. We're right back here with Showtime Boxing on the 17th. We're right back here for Showtime Championship Boxing on the 25th. We turn right around March 4th one more time. And by the way, that Figueroa versus Magsayo, I mean, that's just got fireworks written all over it. And then one of the most important fights in the first quarter of boxing, frankly, in 2023, David Benavidez taking on Caleb Plant. We're going to have you ready for that one as well. So we're already in February, and nothing slows down from here. It's all brakes, no gas. The calendar ahead is going to be a lot of fun. And for tonight, we just have the main card left. Obviously, it's a great one, right? We can't wait for it. Rey Vargas taking on the somewhat by some unheralded, the guy looking to change his fortunes in Oshaki Foster. That'll be, of course, a 130-pound contest, your WBC World Super Featherweight title on the line for that one. Mario Barrios, the San Antonio hometown guy, at 147, back with Bob Santos taking on Giovanni Santiago out of Puerto Rico. And then Lanier Perot out of Cuba will open up the main card against Victor Faust. Two heavyweights, two undefeated guys. 9 p.m. in the East is when that will be. Folks, that is it really for me today. You guys know the score. We got to watch 4 fights here on the prelims. We have 3 ahead. Vargas and Foster could not be closer. Barrios and Santiago. Barrios is your favorite there, but huge stakes for him in that contest. And then Perot and Faust, just should be so much fun. 2 heavyweights, 2 undefeated guys. A little bit of bragging rights there on the line. A little bit of a rivalry, given that Perot's brother fought and defeated Faust in the amateurs. But you already know that. We've been all over that. My name is Luke Thomas. Let me remind you one more time, Brian Campbell and I, again, who you'll see on the broadcast tonight, we do a podcast live Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 a.m. in the East. It is called Morning Combat. And we would love if you watch this. We cover MMA. We cover boxing. We were just in London for a live show that we did. We're going to recap it all on Monday's show. It's a ton of good stuff. Yeah, it's a really good show. We would love it if you joined it. It's a Showtime produced broadcast as well. But that is it for me here tonight. I want to thank, of course, Malka and Showtime and everyone else who made this broadcast possible. Go to SHOWTIME.com to get your 30-day free trial, 9 p.m. in the East, for Rey Vargas taking on O'Shaquie Foster. We can't wait. I'm out of here. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you on the next one when the Showtime train rolls on. Until then, enjoy the fights.
A pesar de que estuve 2 años inactivo, con una lesión, con operación, que la gente me daba ya por retirado, y regreso fuerte y regreso siendo campeón del mundo.
Rey Vargas is starting to land some hellacious hooks to the body.
There's a nice left hook that landed upstairs for Vargas.
Fue una noche donde empiezo a poner el sello en la historia. Son años de trabajo, no solo mío, sino de familia y de todo el equipo que viene de atrás. Y mi familia pues es la principal, ¿no? Todo el tiempo, toda mi vida he estado ahí. Buenas, malas, altas, bajas, siempre está ahí, siempre apoyando. Hoy en día también, mi papá es del distrito, mi mamá es de aquí de Otumba. Cuando vio una tranquilidad aquí en Otumba, decidió venirse, ¿no? De ese momento, pues empecé yo a crecer aquí en Otumba. También algo que me gusta de los pueblitos y en específico de Otumba, la gente de aquí persevera tradición. Y yo creo que eso es algo que se tiene que quedar siempre. Es como en el boxeo. El boxeo, yo tengo la vieja escuela. Empezó mi papá a darme el boxeo. Muchas cosas que son protocolos para mí y eso lo adapto de mi papá porque él me lo enseñó. E inmediatamente de pluma, a la siguiente pelea, luego ir por un título de 130, tampoco no es común. Hacer lo que nadie se atreve y hacer cosas que a muchos le darían miedo. Y yo creo que eso es lo que me motiva. No digo sueño porque esté mal, sino que el sueño no quiero que se quede ahí, ¿no? Sino realizarlo, que sea una realidad en lugar de un sueño. Me causa emoción, ¿no? Porque entonces cuando empiecen a mencionar cuántos campeones mundiales en 3 divisiones ha habido, y es una lista escasa y salga mi nombre, es un récord, es algo genial para mí.
In the early years in my professional career, it was pretty tough. I didn't have a lot of promoters coming after me, being that I was from a small city. The 2 losses I suffered early in my career, it was basically from a lack of focus, a lack of guidance. After the Chanel fight, I had some disagreements with my promoter. We ended up falling out. At that point, I didn't know where my direction was in boxing. All I had was the streets. I figured out that I really ain't have too much of a path other than boxing, and if I was going to be great, then I needed to push it. I tried to put all my effort and all my focus into boxing.
But I don't think it's overstatement to declare that we're seeing the resurrection of a career here.
Oh, no question.
Making them miss, making them pay, picking them apart.
And a coming-of-age fight clearly for O'Shaquie Foster.
Fighting for the championship means the world to me. I always wanted to live up to my potential. I put everything into it. I've had my ups and downs, and I feel like now it's time for me to take off. Rey Vargas he's an interesting fighter. He's been a champion for several years. It don't intimidate me, it just motivates me. I've had to take a lot of people's zeros in the last few years. I definitely feel like him moving up to fight me is a mistake, and I feel like it's my coming out party. I'm gonna send him back down to 126 with a loss.
We're really breaking through and we're opening doors for the next generation.
If you see someone who looks like you doing things out of the ordinary, it would encourage you that you can do the same thing or better.
Someone at some point might feel inspired just by the existence of these stories.
You can't always do what you're told.
Now we get to be in places of authority. Now I get to be a captain. Let's fly.
One of the greatest players in history was cheated out of his career.
I noticed Mahmoud was not standing for the national anthem.
Am I saying that everything in America is bad? No. But wherever the bad is, as a Muslim, we don't stand for it.
Mahmoud never said, I'm gonna burn the house down, but the Klan burned his house down.
His willingness to take a stand, he should be celebrated for that.
He has lost plenty of sleep, being nervous and anxious.
I literally just woke up. I'm not losing no sleep.
This Saturday, it's a world title fight. Rey Vargas against O'Shaquie Foster. We begin the night with 2 unbeaten heavyweights.
I've come here to give my all, to give the fans a show, and to give the fans the knockout that they want.
San Antonio's very own Mario Barrios taking on Giovanni Santiago.
It's always my favorite fighting year back home. My last fight here was in 2020.
I can not only win, but win convincingly.
I'm still an elite fighter. I can be in there with the best in the division.
At 130 pounds, it's the main event.
I want to be among the best that there ever were in Mexican boxing.
I've always felt like I was one of the best and most talented fighters. I just had to put in the work, and that's what we did.
I'm always going to be there to own him at 126, 130, or 135. I can guarantee you that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our official weigh-in here in the beautiful city of San Antonio, Texas. 234 pounds, 242 and 3/4 pounds, 145 and 3/4 pounds, 146 and 3/4 pounds, 129.5 pounds for O'Shaquie Foster, 129.5 pounds for Rey Vargas. It's the main event live on Showtime.